everybody. Christine here with the Co-Living Code Show and CEO of Kindred. Another weekly episode of our show. And you guys, do you know we've never brought on a repeat guest yet? We've been going for over a year and a half, over 100 episodes. And today is the day. So we decided to bring on Jay Standish again from OpenDoor up in the Bay Area. They're also in Portland. They've had some amazing growth. And I mean, if you guys remember, and we'll put the link to his episode we did back in October 2018. So if you guys didn't see that, you can see that and get caught up. He started back in 2013. So it's really fun to talk to somebody that has tons of knowledge in this space, of course, that's expanding rapidly, doing it in the right way, really passionate about intentional community. And you'll see that in this second interview with Jay. So I will read his bio and then we'll launch right into the episode. Jay Standish is the Chief Product Officer and co-founded OpenDoor.io, an innovative co-living concept born in 2013 in Oakland, California. Jay's pioneering role in the co-living industry has helped expand global recognition of this amazing movement and grow his business to multiple thriving locations. He leads the experience design and marketing and community there. He lives on site and has since day one, which is always interesting. And he's fascinated by the power of healthy groups and teams. During his undergrad, Jay co-founded a student-run organic cafe that taught him the power of business as a vehicle for positive action. He then went to co-found the Impact Hub Seattle co-working space and studied systems thinking at the Presidio MBA program. Jay led visual communication at Accenture for the Agile adoption at AT&T. The 3 businesses Jay has started are all still open and have a combined operating history of 26 years. A designer and people person by nature, Jay brings clear communication to the product design, resident experience, marketing, and community building efforts at OpenDoor. So again, you guys can check out the original episode. It's linked here in the show notes. Otherwise, you can launch right into this one. We had just an amazing conversation, and it was so exciting to hear his updates and their current growth and their future plans. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode. I have Mr. Jay Standish on with OpenDoor out of Oakland, California, and they're in Portland also. And he is our second-time guest. He was on back in October of 2018, so over a year ago. So Jay, time flies, right?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say 3 months ago, but apparently it was like 14 months ago.
Only 14 months ago. No, and I have to start by saying you have an incredible reputation in just this industry. Anytime your name comes up, whether it's your name or OpenDoor, like people just love everything you do. Like,
oh, that's so sweet.
Nobody's ever said a bad thing. I'm like, no, Jay is super rad. Like, let's get him back on and let's hear what you are up to. Yeah, last time I re-listened to that episode. You had 5 properties and you had 3 coming up. And so where are you at right now? I know you've expanded since.
Yeah, we have 12 properties that are either fully, built up communities or are in the process. We're actively leasing and building community there. So
nice. How many units? How many beds total?
It's about 180 right now.
So, whoa, that is amazing. And you still live? Remember you said you live. Do you still live on site at one of them?
I'm actually in my room at Euclid Manor. So I've lived here for 5 years. This was our 3rd project, and we're about to be at the 5-year anniversary of this house. So 13 bedrooms and going strong. Two blocks from Lake Merritt in Oakland here.
Nice. And does that home, because you've been there, is it the same kind of core group, or is there a lot of turnover in that house?
Yeah, there were 5 of us initially that started the house, including my business partner, Ben, and his wife. And they recently bought a house and moved out about a year ago. But 3 of us are still here from the original founding group. And then another 2 folks have been here for over 3 years. And some other folks that have been here for 2 years. So it's sort of, half old timers, half new timers. But in general, folks stay about 2.5 years is the average duration in our houses across the board. So it's definitely, people are in it to win it, and investing and putting down roots. So.
No, I love, and again, for those that don't know, you started back in 2013. So before it was even, even a real big thing. And now, I feel like 2019 was like such a tipping point for co-living. Did you feel the same way, the growth in just the last year?
I think a lot of things were coming to fruition in 2019, but I actually would say more like for us 2017, because a lot of the deals that are coming online in 2019 were inked in 2017. So a lot of the pipeline we're seeing now, we've already been working on for a number of years. Because we're on our third new construction design for co-living project that's actually, physically built and about to start being leased up. So that's in Portland, and leasing up in about 2 weeks. We'll be launching.
And then you have the renderings online, right? The picture, I think I saw them on your website.
Yeah. So the house I'm talking about, or community really, is called The Grove. And it's actually 2 11-bedroom co-living homes that are, have share a courtyard between them. So, and then another project that's new construction that opened before that, called The Village, is actually 4 independent houses that are all kind of one community, but it's 26 bedrooms. And then we have a project in West Oakland, in sort of our home base, that's 17 bedrooms that we developed ourselves and custom built for a community, and it's 17 bedrooms. I don't know if I already said that. So
Yeah, not that
yeah.
one. No, you guys have so many, and your branding is so I love how each home, each community has its own name, its own little branding and vibe. Do you guys bring a professional in to do that?
If I could be considered a professional, then yes.
Awesome.
I have a background in graphic and web design, and I'm more on the marketing side of things these days, and sort of driving the resident selection and community building and leasing process of filling all these bedrooms. But I've done most of the designs. We've had help from other folks. We actually even had a resident designed, and generally the house names are also a collaboration between the early residents and OpenDoor, and we sort of arrive on a name that everybody's excited about and feels like it's representative of the culture of people that live there. So
That is amazing. I love that. And so is there a sweet spot as far as how many numbers of residents you guys think works really well in a community?
yeah, we found that it's around 12 is kind of the ideal sweet spot, but can definitely go higher. But that is for what we call a pod, but it's sort of a household. So some of our projects now have multiple pods on site. So the Grove is a 2-pod project that's 2 11-bedroom homes that each of them have their own kitchen, living, kind of dining space. So yeah, but it can go up to 16. We kind of say 8 to 15 or so, but really 12, 14 is kind of the sweet spot.
Cool. And then have they ever, we had somebody on a couple of months ago where they had 4 different homes on one piece of property. And they said sometimes the residents would switch into another house on property. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That's happening right now at the Village, which is 26 bedrooms, but 4 houses. And it's in the late lease up phase. We're like 80% filled there after a couple months. And so as the culture is starting to gel, folks are kind of like swapping around. And part of it is a social thing, but also part of it, some people might realize either I really want a private bath or I don't really care, or, different sort of room amenity issues. So.
Because some have private baths and some don't.
Yeah, in that house, actually, there's 3 new construction buildings and an old house. The old house, I don't think any have private baths, but in the new construction project, 100% of the bedrooms have private baths. So I guess I think it's about 80% private baths in that project.
Okay. No, that's a good number. And I'm sure people are willing. Most people even pay extra for having their own bathroom.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say meaningfully more. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. And then, what's been the biggest highlights and wins, since we last talked 14 months ago?
Yeah. Well, in general, I guess maybe we had 5 projects at that point,
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
6. Yeah, it's just always really interesting seeing how each community emerges. And we work with an early set of residents we call kind of community catalysts. And it's just so inspiring to see the vision and energy and passion that those early founding residents bring to the table. And each house or community ends up emerging into a unique group of people, but it's been really interesting seeing the commonalities and how we facilitate that coming into being. And we're starting to really hit our stride in terms of providing a consistent process for that unique kind of outcome to emerge.
Cool. So do you guys have a certain framework that you kind of have those catalysts instill in the beginning of the house?
Yeah, definitely. We basically have a curriculum of workshops and then sort of tools, templates, guides, and best practices for living in community. So we definitely don't just throw people in the deep end and lease up rooms and say, good luck. We have like a whole kind of academy that we're running people through in terms of how does a food program work? How does cooking, chores, participation, leadership roles, house meetings, communication, shared decision making, all of that is like really deeply documented, and we provide a lot of resource and coaching to help bring people up the curve.
So everybody that moves in goes through this curriculum, or just the leaders?
More the leaders. It's sort of like whoever can make the meeting is the truth of it. But also, we provide the written form of a lot of this stuff. So if people want to dig in, they can, but it's definitely a huge part of that catalyst role to be more deeply onboarded and help to disseminate the process, but definitely more the founding resident group. So as we're starting a new project, the first set of residents that move in are definitely going to get more exposure to that sort of community curriculum.
And then do you guys have, how often are the house meetings? Are they weekly?
Depends on the house. We tend to suggest more house meetings in the early phase as the community is getting going. There's more agreements to make, more stuff to figure out. In my house, we maybe have a house meeting once a month. It's really kind of as needed once the house is really strong and stabilized, because most decisions get made sort of asynchronously online through Slack and stuff like that. So it's more bigger decisions, and we do like dinner interviews, like call them dinner views for new residents who are applying, and our existing residents are really deeply involved in interviewing and vetting incoming residents and really kind of drive the selection process. So 95% of the rooms are filled through referrals of existing residents.
Oh, nice. That's the best way. That is always the best referrals.
Yeah, and people, it matters so much who you live with, and that's a core part of what we do. And so I think it's been really promising to see how well that resident referral, we call it referral, but they just think of it as choosing their roommates, so.
So diving, and I know you're so great at intentional community, building community. What are some events you guys have been doing lately in the homes? And do they decide, each home decides on what events they're going to host?
Yeah, definitely. Residents do a lot of kind of self-initiated events. We had a really great sort of acoustic music night here a couple weeks ago. Dinners are our staple. So all of our houses have a shared food program, and residents cook together. And then most houses have shared dinners among the housemates, but also close friends and guests. 1 to 3 nights a week, depending on the house.
Wow.
My house is 2 nights a week, every Wednesday and Sunday for the last 5 years. We've had a dinner here. And so that's a really great way to build community, not just among existing residents, but sort of the extended friend groups. And, you might have a new housemate who you don't overlap in your friend circles, or they're from a different walk of life or a different part of the country, and you get to meet their friends and kind of connect with folks who maybe are a little different than you, but in this really intimate and sort of personal setting where each person is kind of clearly, chosen to be there. And so it allows you to kind of drop in and connect with people in a different way. So that's definitely the weekly or daily process. There's probably a community dinner happening every single day of the week at OpenDoor at all times in one house or another.
That's amazing. No, I agree. I mean, it's more intimate than meeting at a restaurant, right? You're bringing them into your home, opening your home up, sharing a meal. I agree 110%. Like we do ours once a month. I wish we do more often. We keep saying we're going to do Sunday night dinners. It's hard to pull off with the group, but we do it once a month where we invite guests and go around the table. And so that's, building community, bringing the outside in is really cool. And just like you said, each person's bringing friends from their own personal networks. And then, I have some of my closest friends are through my housemates, from years ago.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah. So let's see what has been, okay. So we talked about highlights, talked about wins, growing rapidly. I'm sure there's been a little bit of challenges that have happened along with all that. So, any challenges along the way lately?
I would say overall, it's not like there's a huge problem, but the main source of work for us right now is just opening new properties and an increasing clip of filling rooms and building communities. So I think this upcoming quarter and a little bit into Q2 we'll be filling about 60 bedrooms, which rewind a couple of years and that was more than our entire portfolio. So we basically doubled last year, maybe a little bit more than doubled, and are sort of looking at, we'll probably be doubling this year as well. And so, we've just been building systems for filling bedrooms. And I think it's been an interesting process of balancing, the business needs of just hitting timelines and sort of fulfilling on our real estate obligations of getting rooms leased up by a certain date, and then balancing that with building community in a way that's authentic to that group and sort of allowing time to fulfill and curate on the group coming into being in a really healthy way. And, I think we've been able to find a middle path between those. And some of that also is in structuring things with our real estate partners really well and aligning incentives so that they know that, filling it with the right people is always going to pay dividends in the future. And so we've been learning a lot about how to set the structures up well for that. Yeah.
And then on those, so you guys don't own any of the buildings, or do you own some of them?
We own some of them.
Okay.
We are among the ownership group of right now 2 of our properties. And then we have some projects in the future pipeline that we're also on the development team. So you can loosely think of it as an 80-20 split, where 80% we're a third party operator. Yeah. And then 20% we're also on the ownership side.
And on the third party operator side, are you guys doing master leases, or are you just taking a share of the profits made?
We have experimented with almost every structure and deal term you could possibly imagine over the years. And that's been a really huge part of our learning, is just what the best terms and structure are. But generally the go-to is that we are a percentage-based property manager. Not to get too detailed into the terms, but that generally aligns incentives well. So
no, for sure, for both sides. I think that's a really good way to do it, and less risky too, versus like guaranteeing a master lease of 10 years. And
yeah, you would need some corresponding benefit to taking on additional risk of a master lease.
And then Jay, I know you had your construction boots on last time we talked. You were like literally like on site, boots on the ground, literally. Like, are you still super active on site on the construction portion of it, of just kind of project management, or you're just on marketing now?
Um, yeah, I mean, pretty involved in construction stuff, although we just don't have a lot of active construction going on right now. The Union, which was the new construction project that we developed in West Oakland, that was probably the project you were talking about, but that's fully built and is, well underway in terms of lease up right now. But yeah, we have one renovation project that we're managing, but actually my partner Ben is taking that project on right now. So
Nice. No, you guys must be the best partners in the world. You guys were living together forever.
yeah, we definitely we built the company through living together in one of our houses for about, I guess, 5 years total. We lived in a prototype house for about a year and a half, and then we lived in Euclid Manor for about 4 years together. So, you know, in hindsight, that's what it takes to create something new, and it's a lot of time. So it actually kind of makes it easier to work extended hours, or you'd be brushing your teeth and be like, hey dude, I had this idea. So that's definitely how it went down. So
Nice. Oh my gosh, that's great to hear. It's great, partnerships, hearing partnerships get along is always a good thing. But yeah, living together, working together, like that's extra impressive for sure.
yeah.
So let's see here. What about the thoughts on fractional ownership? That's been talked about a little bit lately. Like, is that something you guys have ever considered offering?
I would say that's been definitely a research project that's done on Saturdays and Sundays when we're curious about it, and we're super interested in it. It's not something that we're ready to start doing right away, just because we have our hands full with what we're currently committed to. But definitely something as we grow that is really interesting, particularly because, again, not to get too wonky with the real estate finance stuff, but once a property is developed, then generally speaking, you're looking for a long-term owner. And so if, instead of a pension fund or some other group, you essentially, well, the pension, so to speak, would be, a group of small investors who'd be pooling together to buy out the project. And could either be on-site residents or extended OpenDoor members, or just broader, maybe neighborhood community members, or folks that are, wouldn't have access to, sophisticated private equity level investments, but, could pull together to own a building. So definitely interesting to us. And I think there's a couple startups that are working on infrastructure for that.
There
Um,
is now. Yeah, finally a couple, but like just early stage figuring it out. And I've been talking about it for months and months. So I'm so excited somebody's running with it.
yeah.
But just even on a like a co-living concept level, on a company level, like to offer that, like you said, to your members, whether they live there now or they used to live there, if they had a piece of ownership, especially
Yeah.
since your people stay so, you said they stay 3 years on average?
Yeah, 2.5 years overall. I mean, some of that is, the numbers are a little weird because there's a lot of projects that are very recent.
Yeah,
So,
no.
but yeah, people generally stay, 1 to 3 years, basically.
Cool. And then do you see quicker growth, like quicker lease up on the ones in California, like Portland or Oakland? Or which one's growing
Um,
quicker?
I don't know if we have enough data points to make an accurate assessment of that. But in general, I think it depends. The lease up speed depends less on the market and more on, I would say, four main factors. There's, or really two, you could say product and price, which is kind of vague, but it's really specific location in that city. Is it a desirable place? Are there walkable amenities? Do people feel safe? Is there a park nearby? Is it close to public transportation, et cetera? The attractiveness of the neighborhood. Price, but really price relative to, I would say, overall, amenities, common space, what people feel like they're getting, as well as the room, the private amenities of that bedroom itself.
Mm.
So, there are cases in which some of our houses have an extraordinary amount of common space, and like our house is like the entire ground floor is common space. It's almost too much. It's Victorian mansion from 1910 with like velvet wallpaper and the whole bit, versus other houses more kind of economical with common space. You might have 7 bedrooms with one main common kind of kitchen living area. So it's a different feel and a different concept when you're looking at like a 6,000 square foot mansion versus like an urban flat that's 2,500 square feet, but is like 40% of the bedrooms. So again, too much detail there, but there's sort of a pricing algorithm, so to speak. And so when you're pushing if the product to price ratio, so to speak, is that's what the market is you're really testing what people are finding valuable, and so that affects the lease up speed more than anything. So the super short answer is price.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Are there any other cities? Are there any other cities you're going to expand out to?
So right now, actively focusing on broadly Bay Area and Portland, although we think of the Bay Area very broadly. So we're already in multiple cities in the Bay Area: San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, and then we're very actively looking in like San Jose and some other places around the Bay Area. But we're also pretty actively looking in Seattle, so sort of a sister market to Portland, and then pretty actively looking in LA right now. So we have projects that we're, aren't 100% confirmed, but we're looking at seriously in those 2 places. So right now, just really focusing kind of Western US, and there's definitely conversations in other places, but I won't get into that now.
LA has really, I'm blown away in like the last year and a half how many sprung up in LA like overnight. Like LA was kind of lagging on the co-living front.
I think it's not just a co-living thing. I think LA is happening, at least relative to the Bay Area. There's a lot of people here that are moving to LA. I think more creatives are moving there. People are feeling priced out of the Bay Area a little bit, although LA is basically just as expensive. But I think there's more parts of LA that you can kind of find a deal in than in the Bay Area. So it's not surprising. I think LA has a little bit of a currency to it right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. And then, okay, without saying any names, is there anything going on? And again, you're a veteran in the space. Okay, so you've kind of seen the lay of the land for some years. Is there anything you think some of the bigger operators or people on a global level even are doing that you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, just in general in co-living?
Well, first of all, I mostly, stick to my own business, but we pay attention, and people send us articles and stuff like that, and we're aware of what's going on. We don't really compare ourselves too much because we just focus on what we know works. I do think I would say in general, there's a question around what's the definition of co-living, because there are a lot of things that are really just furnished bedrooms or furnished apartments, or easy to rent online brands renting housing, and so what's the distinction between essentially a serviced apartment and co-living? So there, particularly in Asia, there's a lot of new well-capitalized groups that are mostly coming from a real estate investment background, who are doing serviced apartments with sort of a co-living twist. So it's not like there's anything wrong with that. It's just more of a question of nomenclature, and for potential residents not to get confused about what they're receiving. But we definitely do have people apply to our houses who have either applied to other kind of operators or have lived in other operators, and very frequently get the feedback like, okay, this is really the community experience that I was looking for. with shared meals and house meetings and people really knowing each other. And really importantly, that our existing residents are involved in vetting and selecting their housemates. And it's really a more direct sense of, you're applying to this group of people. You're not just applying to, sort of a third party company. Although we're facilitating the process and making it easier and setting up systems, we also involve our residents in those selections. So.
No, and I think you're right. I think over time, the consumer is going to kind of start seeing the difference themselves of like, okay, this is community. This was instant friends. I moved to a new city. I didn't know anybody, now I have all these like a ton of friends,
Yeah.
versus a service apartment, a furnished apartment, and there's no events going on and I don't know my neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the main way that it impacts us as a business is that we'll be talking to real estate investors and developers, and they've either spoken with or done deals with other operators, and that the performance of another operator can potentially sour the expectations of a developer or investor, and saying, hey, we tried this once, but they had like 10% vacancy, or the turnover, it was like the average tenancy was only 6 months, and that's not really what we're looking for. And so we're like, no, we have basically 0% vacancy and 18 to 36 month durations of stay. So
Hey, then that makes you guys look better. That's good.
Totally. When you're looking at 6 to 7% returns, if you can reduce a vacancy rate that's modeled usually at 3 to 5% and reduce that to 0, you just like almost doubled the potential yield from the project alone. So just the vacancy alone, as we get more mature and as those numbers, we're able to consistently hit low vacancy numbers, I think that will help unlock more value in the project and allow the design to be strengthened, and just creates kind of more pie to be split up amongst everyone. So.
No, that's amazing. And those are the two biggest costs. It's like the cost of property management is the turnover, right? So the more everybody turns over, the more expensive it gets. And then the team, the staffing. So yeah, keeping
Totally. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I remember in the very early days, Campus was a co-living company that predated us. I think by maybe 6 months or something like that. And they were venture backed, and we were good friends with their founder and still are. But they definitely had a large amount of growth that they were beholden to in terms of following a VC growth curve. And their biggest costs were vacancy and staffing. And we're like, cool, staffing is still our biggest cost, but not even close. Vacancy is basically a non-issue for us in terms of stabilized properties. So that's a huge distinction there, and I think that partially comes from, the way that we started the business was very, scrappy and hands-on, and Ben and I still know exactly how everything works. And when we have a feel for projects that are not a good idea, and, so we just don't do bad deals, basically.
That's always a good thing, right? And then, no, that was my next question, because you guys you haven't taken any VC money at all, right? This whole time? Have you guys done any funding?
Not really. Yeah. We went through 500 startups, which is basically a VC. But yeah, I think that was sort of during a phase of the company where we were not sure if we wanted to go the VC route or what the other options were. Being in the Bay Area, it's just very present and available. So we kind of took a look at it and kicked the tires, you could say, but really realized that a lot of the capital that we were going to need to be raising wasn't for our operating company, but it was for the deals itself. It's like easily 10x the amount of capital requirements for the real estate. And so we've moved more in the direction of kind of building team around real estate expertise and focusing on raising, real estate capital and making sense to real estate investors. And then, oh, by the way, there's also an opportunity to jump into the operating company.
Awesome. No, that's a way better way of people I've talked to structure it. Way easier to raise on the property itself, right? Versus, yeah, for the company. And then what are some of your favorite co-living brands in the world that you like?
That's a good question.
Other than
Wow.
your own.
I've never been asked that. There's a group in Amsterdam called
Zoku.
Yeah, I met some of the folks at a co-living thing like 2 years ago. Really liked their team, and just like checking out their projects and website. Really great design, really beautiful spaces. So it seemed that project seems really cool. I like those folks. God, I definitely don't want to play favorites, but so this is just kind of off the top of my head. We know the folks from Outsite. Etienne, I think is his name. Maybe I'm mixing.
Emmanuel out of Outsite.
Yeah. Emmanuel. Yeah. Sorry. He's great, and really like Outside, and have some friends who are involved in that project. I'm also a surfer, and a lot of their projects are based around kind of co-living locations in surf spots. So I'm part of the target demographic there. Yeah, there's another group. There's a group in Atlanta that I think is doing interesting stuff, that's maybe under the radar a little bit. But we sort of co-hosted an event in Oakland with them around some of the community finance questions. So it was like a dinner event of people who are working in sort of social justice and economic equity and sort of real estate crowdfunding stuff. And so they're an operator, but they're also really focused on economic justice in sort of greater Atlanta area. So I think that project is really cool and really sort of, has really strong social impact and just really good people involved.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's so many now. I just can't even keep track. So.
Yeah, no. 3 is good. That's perfect. Off the top of your head. Yeah, Zoku, I've said them on this. Well, we've had Hans, the founder, on the show, and cool. He's incredible. And I co-worked from there. I've stayed there. It's one of my, like, everybody knows that's one of my favorites in the world. Nice. Customer service, the team, like you said, is incredibly amazing. Yeah. So it's fun because, again, I wanted to change up the questions. I'm like, if we start bringing on some return guests, I want to ask different questions. So thank you for that. So 2 more questions. One is, what is in the future? I know you talked about some of the cities. What else is in the future for you guys?
Yeah, I would say the biggest headline there is new construction projects designed for co-living specifically, and definitely larger scale. So projects that are more in the apartment scale that are anywhere from 75 to 200 bedrooms in that range. So 100 plus bedroom co-living apartments that are split up by pod, where you might have some of those 12 bedroom co-living households stacked on top of each other, and then the opportunity for some building-wide common space, and that's really exciting for us because, again, geeky business stuff, but that scale of projects makes staffing a little bit easier because each project can sort of justify at least one full-time hire. So it makes growing the team a little bit more predictable, and also someone can really focus on that individual project and get to know all the people there. And we have community coordinators in all of our projects who get a little bit of a rent stipend for being sort of a liaison and point of contact, but being able to have a full-time person play that role and live in the community, but also be a kind of a full-time OpenDoor staff is really exciting. New markets. We're as we have, I guess we have about 8 projects in the Bay Area now. We're starting to do some more gatherings across houses, and just did like a field trip to a rural intentional community and sort of permaculture site, and just finding ways to connect residents across the houses is really fun. But I kind of can't speak to the specifics on future projects, but some are pretty close to being a little more confirmed. But we're just really enjoying having some more design input on projects. Historically we were renovating and adapting existing buildings, and it definitely makes things a lot easier to build exactly what we want. And as we've been doing even the last couple new construction projects, we're really honing in on the perfect model, the right amount of common space, the right bedroom ratio, how big the rooms are, where to invest in terms of furniture and materials and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's cool. And then so out of all your communities, all your houses right now, what's the largest one? How many units are in the largest one?
26 bedrooms.
26. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So going 100 plus, that's like a big jump per property.
Yeah. And we have some projects, like the 100 plus projects are all new construction. So they would be at least 2 years out. So we have some pipeline in the interim that's more in the 40, 50, 60, 70 range. So it's actually kind of, the project size is like growing quite nicely, and allows us to, build the systems and grow the team in a sustainable manner to get ourselves ramped up to doing bigger projects. So.
Nice. Okay. So my last question is, what's one piece of advice for anyone watching or listening to the show who's a current operator or thinking about getting into co-living? What's like one gem? I mean, you gave a lot of gems on this call. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your growth. But
I would say that one gem would just be live in the property. and there's so many minor details that you can learn. They're important, but small, not minor. That details that you wouldn't otherwise learn if you don't live in the property day in and day out and are a member of the community. And that gives you, I think, a lot more empathy to residents, and it gives you a better sense of when you get a request or a new need from residents, frankly, what's important and what's not, and what's important to go out of your way in sort of a customer service way, problems to solve, versus other ones that you can maybe address them, but say, how about this other solution? So having that depth of knowledge, I think, is really important.
Ooh, that's a perfect way to end this interview. So Jay, thanks again for coming on. You are amazing. Like I said, everybody loves you. Everybody loves what you're doing up there with OpenDoor. So
well, thanks, Christine. I'm so glad you're doing this show, because stuff like this we always imagine ourselves doing and haven't quite had the time to do. So I'm really glad you're doing it for us.
Yes, of course. Well, you participated too. So thank you. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks a lot, Christine. Take care.
Okay, bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out kindred.io, KNDRD.io. Thanks. And a quick thank you to SPX Agency for all of the graphics, animation, and design on our YouTube channel.